Our next author has written a powerful and beautiful love letter to her grandparents, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta King. Yolanda Renee King is the author of We Dream a World, Carrying the Light from My Grandparents, Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta King. It's a pleasure to have you on our show, Yolanda.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So Yolanda, tell us about your book that's being called A Love Letter to Your Grandparents.
So the book is called We Dream a World, and it was actually inspired by the Langston Hughes poem, I Dream a World, which actually, interestingly enough, inspired the I Have a Dream speech that we know so well. And the book, it starts at the beginning of the civil rights movement and talks about my grandparents and it's almost a thank you. And then it kind of goes over to the other side of today, and it talks about the type of world we can have. And you see a lot of, intentionally, we decided to use very colorful images that are eye-catching to show what this world we dream of really looks like. And also, what through the use of poetic language, like using, I guess, almost like a poetry to it.
Wow. And what do you recall hearing about the civil rights movement and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s involvement throughout your childhood? How did it influence you?
Well, throughout my life, I always heard about the movement, and I always heard about the significance of the movement. But it wasn't until, I guess, I was 9 that I really understood how significant the movement was and how significant my grandparents were. And it was like a feeling where I understood, and it wasn't someone else telling me, it was me coming to my own conclusion and understanding that.
And you not only share DNA, but also a passion to keep Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy alive. Do you call yourself an activist?
I do. I consider myself an activist, and anyone who uses their platform, and it doesn't have to necessarily be through speaking. It can be, the book itself, is an example of that, but in their community, or organizes, or uses their artwork, or gets their school to do something. I consider anyone who does that and uses their platform for good an activist.
And of all the social issues that impact us today, what issue inspires you to stand up and speak out?
Well, I feel like all issues, and of course, historically in my family, we've especially focused on what my grandfather called the triple evils, which has kind of changed. Sometimes it's racism, poverty, and bigotry, or racism, poverty, and militarism, or racist or / violence, and what I usually call it is racism, poverty, and violence, and I guess those are the issues we usually hear of. But other issues in my family that we are also, I guess, really concerned about, and that draw us to make changes, climate change as well. That's just as important as human rights, because without having a clean climate, then we can't even solve those human rights issues, because we can't get around without a clean earth.
And to that point, the 2024 presidential election cycle has begun, and while you are too young to vote right now, will you be carrying on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s work to protect and defend voting rights?
Yes, of course, and I think that I encourage people who are too young to vote, and who are in a similar situation as I am, to encourage those around you to vote. Encourage your parents to vote. If you have older siblings who are old enough to vote, encourage them to vote. Encourage your cousins to vote. Encourage your family to vote. Encourage friends, if they're old enough, to go out and vote.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would be celebrating his 95th birthday this year, and his accomplishments have made history. What was it like having your grandfather as an inspiration?
Well, I think that I guess I'm really grateful to have so much access to such an influential leader, and being able to have access to stories and And I think that a lot of people are really inspired by his work, and it's for me. I'm just really happy that I'm able to see close up, because I think a lot of people forget about the strength and the fortitude that it really takes to do this, and to endure all that he did. And so being able to see that, not just the, I guess, the side of victory, but to see other sides that many times history forgets to include or forgets to incorporate is really inspirational. I think the inspirational part is, yes, what he was able to accomplish, but what's really inspirational is the hard work part, is the not so fun part we don't like to talk about a lot. Is That's the part that inspires me, I think, the most. Seeing the pain that he had to go, and seeing all that he, and my grandmother. I think that
Hmm.
it's certainly important to mention my grandmother, who was involved in the peace movement in the 1940s, prior to my grandfather joining the movement, and was actually the one who brought him in. But really, it's inspiring to see, I guess, the work ethic part, the strength that they had in order to, that they had to be equipped with in order to do what they did.
Yolanda, you're very inspirational, and again, I can see the change that you want to see happen and come to fruition. And I'm excited that you're introducing people into Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and your dream in your book. You can find We Dream a World wherever books are sold.